Hello, I'm having to re-record some of the audio for this video because there was a problem with the microphone. I didn't realise until I came to edit it, but you can barely hear what I'm saying a lot of the time. The remaining audio is not that great, but you should at least be able to understand me. So what I'm looking at here is a Beko 36233PD. It's 11.1 chassis. It's 33 inch from mid-90s. It's got multiple problems and you'll see the first one now. So you can see it loses sync here. This happens when you've got a picture with a lot of white. And that vertical sync's come back, you can see there's a bit of a kink in the picture. It's near the top of the picture. It's a bit difficult to see here, but you can see it slightly on that text. This is dependent on picture content as well, but it's always there to some extent. This is composite video through CRT that we're looking at here, and something about this fault that should help me narrow down the cause of the problem is that it only affects the SCART. If I connect this up through RF using a video recorder as a modulator, then the problem disappears, as you can see here. So you can see it's working properly here. There's no loss of sync, and distortion on that text's gone as well. There's two SCART sockets on this set. This one which is composite only, and another one which is an RGB SCART. The RGB SCART doesn't work at all. Well, rather, if I connect an RGB source to it, it drives the guns, but there's no sync whatsoever. The sync for the RGB comes from the composite signal, and as you could expect, if I connect a composite video source to that SCART, there's no picture. Another problem with the set, and I expect this one to be easier to solve, there's sometimes no sound out of one of the speakers. I can usually clear it by giving it a bash, so I think it's just dry joints on the connections to the speakers. Here's inside at telly. Pretty dusty. There's dry joints on here, look at that. So maybe that other thing not working is also due to a dry joint on here. That other SCART not working, you know. So that connects to there, does it? This speaker. Wonder if that's dry joint and all then. Won't surprise me. I've got it out, but you can't fully get to everything yet. I unscrewed these two screws, and then just unhook that. I unhooked this mains lead from in here. Half the stuff's blocked off by this. So what I'm going to do, should be able to take the board out of that by unscrewing these screws. There's this screw down here next to the line output transformer that's like proper rusty. I don't know what's happened to that. It's like completely rusted. This is the double SCART module. Here I'm just inspecting the boards and looking at how the thing's put together, and I'm considering how to proceed. I'm thinking that there might be dry joints on here, so I'm just looking at what I need to do in order to get to everything and resolder it. It's hard to get it at an angle where you can get to things. But it's this section round here that I'm sort of thinking might be causing problems for picture. These are like 8, 12, 5-volt regulators, and there's HT supply. I think it's just all it is. I think is just like a diode and a capacitor. Like for this little SCART module board. So SCART 2 composite comes in here, and then so this 2.5 volts that comes from this voltage divider here from 5 volts. That so biases it for this analog switch IC here. You've got pin 1 and pin 2, your two possible ones to 15, which comes out here through this buffer, and then off to pin 9 of that and into the rest of the board. So I presume the main board just treats it as if there's one SCART, and then all switching of the two goes on here. Seems that way anyway. So I'll resolder this pin 3 where the SCART comes in there, and I'll check these and see where we're at. I'm not sure which is connector 1 and which is connector 2, so I'm just going to do both. Let's have a look at the back side of this board. I'll really see if there's any dry joints. Well, they are anyway, I know that. It's hard to tell if any other ones are. I'll touch these up though, because I know that there's trouble with them speakers, but it usually sorts it out if you bash it up there. So weird. Might not be on here. Plugged PlayStation into one of the SCARTs. Let's see if it comes on now. It's still like that. So there must still be no composite from that SCART. That speaker. Well, sound's coming out of both channels anyway. That's one fault, seems to be fixed. Right, what I've done is I've left it overnight. It's getting a bit late. I'm coming back to it now. This is following day. And what I've decided to do, rather than trying to get that other SCART working, is to just focus on the problem with the picture on the SCART that does work, see if I can get that sorted out, and then I'll look at the the other SCART. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have a look at the voltages from the power supply and see if there's anything amiss. I'll show you circuit here. This is 145 volt HT supply. All this is it's just a diode rectifier and a filter capacitor. That's all there is to it. So I'm not really suspecting that. What I'm more interested in is this 12 volt supply here, diode rectifier, couple of filters, well the main like 1000 microfarad filter capacitor, and then this LM317 that's like a variable linear linear regulator, and then there's from that is fed the 8 volt supply, which is a 7808, and then you've got a 5 volt supply here, 7805 regulator. So they're all just like pretty simple, you know, straightforward sort of 3-pin regulator circuit. It's just standard circuit. And then you got this transistor here that will pull that down and has to put it in standby. By the looks of it, turns off 12 volt supply. So I'll check these. Should get 12, 8 and 5. Right, so I've plugged the set in. I've not switched it on yet. I'm using this heatsink as like my 0 volt reference point, and I know that's alright because I've checked schematic. Also, I mean, for measuring these regulators, these have got the tabs connected to this heatsink, and their tabs are connected to earth, you know, the 0 volt pin. So I know that that's alright, but so you can't always rely on heatsinks being that in a telly. I'll turn it on. And just be careful not to short it to heatsink. 8.05, that's your 8 volt. 5.03, that's your 5 volt. And 12 volt. 15.5. So that looks to not be regulating. And let's have a look at what's going out at rectifier and filter. D410. Where's that? That's this. 15.5. So that's just, that looks to be short through. It's just going straight through. It's not regulating it. So I'll replace that and see what happens. Right then, test that, and I'll just test the regulator. Make sure it's regulating. Make sure I've got 12 volts, and then I'll look at the picture. it's still 15. Right, well, I made a bit of a schoolboy error with this regulator. I've just gone off at pin numbering on this circuit here, and it's got it numbered 1, 2, 3. But of course that's not right. So I'm measuring it pin 3, looking for output voltage, but it's actually 1, 2, 3. Pin 3 is actually the input. So I'm measuring 15 volts on there, thinking it's shorted, but of course that's the input, so it's going to be about that. But anyway, not to worry. We've got 12 volts on there. Probably had it in first place anyway, but you know. So I'm thinking next thing I'm going to do is get the scope out and have a look at some signals. I know that it's alright, like the deflection and everything's working alright, because picture's fine on RF, so it's got to be something in, it's going to be in sort of small signal stages that's unique to the composite, you know, the SCART, specifically the composite, I think. So I mean, this SCART board, I'm going to check it as it's where it goes into the main board, and see if it's already if it's already distorted there. Then I've narrowed it down to that SCART board. So that's what I'm going to do now. I've got my scope set up to, it's triggering on the vertical sync, and I've got it set to sort of, what have I got it on? 5 milliseconds per division. So you should be able to see a couple of fields. I want it a bit more vertical. Look at that. That was where it went mad. Look at it, you can see that ripple thing. That's what you're seeing on the screen. That's at the point where it's going into the main board. Well, that's interesting. That looks like it's on the SCART board then, problem. Right, so what happens is it comes in. You've got two possible sources for composite. This SCART, and then this one over here that's coming from other SCART socket, and they're going to two inputs. So this 4053, an analog switch. So one of them's selected, and then this is output pin 15. Goes down here, this buffer, and then goes into main board. Well, have a look, see well, whereabouts in circuit it's happening. What I'm going to do is I'm going to just follow the signal in. I think we're on this SCART, aren't we? See if it, check it there, see if it's already what it's like when it's going into that chip, what it's like when it's coming out, and see at which point it becomes distorted, and then we'll be able to see where the fault is. Right, so this is actual SCART input itself that I'm measuring now. That looks alright. It's nice and steady. It's SCART's locking onto it. Not SCART, the scope's locking onto it properly and that. That's terminated with a 75 ohm resistor. And then there's a DC blocking capacitor, C1003, and a bias signal of 2.5 volts, half at rail voltage, to set the conditions for that switch. So I'll have a look at the other side of that capacitor now. Right, so that's one side of it. That's the other side of it. So that's where it's going wrong. So this is where it comes in here. It's alright up to there, and then that's where it's gone wonky. So I'll check this 2.5 volt supply. Check there, see what that's like. Because if it could be this supply that's doing it, or if not, then it might be chip. So that's the other side of that. That's that 2.5 volt bias supply. I mean, that the scope's set to AC. The other side it's like that. So that supply looks fine. So that leads me to think that it's probably the chip. Supply for chip is taken from the same source as that 2.5 volt supply, so that's going to be fine. If that 2.5 volts is alright, then 5 volts is going to be alright and all, isn't it, surely? I'll just have another check of it. Put it a bit higher thing. Yeah, there's no like 50 Hz. It's not. Don't match that, does it? But it looks to me like it's that chip. What's it like if I change channels actually? I'll put it onto other SCART, but measure this one. Right, so I've got it selected to other SCART that I've not got it plugged into. It looks alright on that. And what's other input like? That's the SCART input that's currently selected, but we've got nothing attached to it. If I connect it up to other SCART, the one that's connected, this is one that don't work at all. This, you get some colours in RGB, but there's no sync, so there's no composite. Yeah, it's even worse, isn't it? But it's only when it's selected. If I take it out, and I see it without SCARTing, that's weird that. But I mean, it's got to be that chip, surely. It must be chip. Because I mean, this blocking capacitor is doing its job. It must be that chip. It's kind of working a bit, but not properly, and it's imposing that like sort of 50 Hz. So I'll take that chip out, I'll replace that chip and put a new one in. And then, I mean, if that doesn't sort it, then I don't know what it is, because I can't see any other probable cause. But I'll take a bit of desoldering, because I've got to like desolder this full board, and I think there's like a ribbon cable attached to it and all that I'll have to desolder. That SCART board's soldered in. I can't put that new chip in situ. It's a surface mount chip and things vertical, so and it's hard, you can't hardly get to it anyway. I'll desolder that. I've got one of them chips. Well, it's 74 HCT 4053. I'm not sure if mine might be an HC. I'm not sure, but I'll give it a go. See what happens. Right, well, I've removed that SCART board. Actually comes off quite easily. You just have to unsolder them, and then it clips away. The bottom SCART clips in there. I think it's sort of designed in such a way that you can have a 2 SCART or 1 SCART version without altering the main board really. Just add that. I mean, there's maybe like a couple of links, or well, there'll be a link that you need to undo, not have for this one. But yeah, it comes off quite easily. I've desoldered the chip. I don't mind soldering these sort of things. A lot of people find it difficult to solder surface mount stuff, but it's not that hard. I just do corners, and then the rest of it more or less solders its same really. You just blob it on, as long as you've not got them joining bridges between legs. It's alright. I'll solder that on and then stick it back together and see if it improves. Let's see if it's working. That looks working to me. That it was on that white screen where it was jumping before. I can't see any distortion around here. Looks to be working to me. I'll try it on other SCART. Right, so this is other AB channel, SCART 2. This weren't working at all pretty much before. Yep, that's fine and all. Right, well, that chip. Just make sure them speakers are working alright. Right, that's definitely coming out of both speakers. Not the most pleasant sound, but I don't think there'll be any copyright strike if it go out against a 3 kHz sine wave. But yeah, not bad. I'm just looking at geometry. There's like a slight kink in places, but yeah, it's fine. What do you expect for like 33-inch telly? Not going to be perfect, is it? Happy with that. I'm not seeing much information about this chassis or these tellies on the internet anywhere. You know, where it is listed, the chassis number that it gives you, it says it's 11.2 on these model number to chassis cross-reference things, but well, it's not. It's 11.1, assuming that that circuit is the 11.1 circuit, and the one that's labelled as 11.2 is 11.2. It's the 11.1 circuit that you need for this. It took me a while to find that, but I mean, I guess there could be some that look the same and have got that other chassis in them. I don't know, but this one certainly hasn't. Anyway, thanks for watching, and good luck with your own repairs. Cheers.